that so folks who weren't able to attend live can still benefit from this discussion. So also a quick reminder about closed captioning. So closed captioning is available within Zoom, and you can find that towards the bottom of the Zoom screen if that's something that would be helpful to you. So if you've been to an I-STARR webinar before, you may recall that the I-STARR project is supported by a grant from the National Institute on Drug Abuse. It's part of the larger NIH Helping to End Addiction Long Term, or the HEAL initiative. And the I-STARR project is one of several projects that comprise the Consortium on Recovery Science, or the COARS network. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm Dr. Amy Miracle. I'm a research scientist in the Alcohol Research Group at the Public Health Institute. I co-lead the I-STARR project with Dr. Karin Masson, who's a professor of psychiatry in the School of Medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. But the team also includes a number of other notable folks. We have co-investigators Sarah Zemore and Lenny Jason, biostatisticians Meena Subbaraman and Libo Lee, communication specialists Diane Schmidt and Dustin Kebzu, and the team's project coordinator is Quinoja Capitani. Let's go to the next slide. So the I-STARR project activities are guided by an amazing 17-member advisory board. And our advisory board is comprised of leaders from across the country, such as folks who represent recovery and recovery housing leaders, treatment providers and payers, national policy advocates, as well as folks like me, researchers and educators. Let's go to the next slide. And now I want to tell you about our speaker today, Joyce Jones from WestCare Inc. Or I said Joyce, I mean Jean. Jean Jones from WestCare Inc. So Jean joined WestCare in 2004. Since that time, she's planned, coordinated, delivered, and maintained oversight of adult residential, outpatient, transitional housing, and youth preventive services. So Ms. Jones was employed in the position of Director of Treatment Services for WestCare's Pinellas and Pasco programs for over 7 years until she decided to enter semi-retirement in 2001. So Jean is currently employed with the WestCare as a trauma specialist, providing individual and group counseling to clients learning to cope with symptoms of trauma and neurotrauma. So Ms. Jones received specialized training with the Neurotrauma Project, which is a 2-year collaborative effort with Florida's Pasco County Drug Court, WestCare Inc., and the late Dr. James Lewis. So this collaborative was designed to meet the unique needs of female drug court clients who struggled with co-occurring brain disorders. So Jean is a graduate of Florida State University School of Social Work and a certified addictions professional. She has over 45 years of experience working in the field of substance use addictions treatment, and she spent much of her career becoming trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive, and trauma-trained. So Jean feels honored to have been chosen to work in this area of social service, and said that one of her greatest blessings in life is to be able to help others in their recovery journey. So without further ado, let's turn the presentation over to Jean to get things started on the topic of therapeutic communities and recovery support. On to you, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you introducing me, and I'm just so grateful to be here. And thank you all for attending. And so I'll talk some about the functions of a therapeutic community. And before we get started, I'd like to give credit to Dr. George De Leon, who has spent years of his time working in therapeutic communities, researching therapeutic communities, consulting, helping to set up therapeutic communities, and has brought quite a bit of legitimacy to this work. And I've had the opportunity to be in training with him at least a couple of times, and he's amazing. And we owe a lot to, we in the recovery community owe a lot to Dr. De Leon. And he's referenced all through my presentation. okay, am I moving? Okay, this is just an outline of what we hope to cover. The objectives that I'd like to cover in this time that we have together is that I hope to give you a framework for how to set up community within a recovery residence and to share practices that build the community, the therapeutic milieu. And let me just do a disclaimer as we move through this. I am fighting something, and it's going around here in Florida. And hopefully my voice holds out. It keeps kind of coming and going. So we're going to try and get through this, so bear with me. So hopefully we are able to maintain. So let me just say a little bit about my own introduction to the TC experience. When I got out of college and returned home to St. Petersburg, Florida, I needed a job. Like most returning students, we need to get to work and start to pay those student loans. So I was looking for a job. So of course I had no experience. So I heard a lot of, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you have no experience. Come back later when you get some experience." And I'm like, well, where am I going to get experience if nobody gives me experience? And then the other thing I heard a lot of was, "Oh, well, you're overly qualified for McDonald's." So, so I knew that I needed a job. And as I was searching for a job, I prayed and asked God, please help me find a job, the job that you would have for me. And so I knew that if I was offered a job, I needed to take it. So I saw an advertisement for an overnight tech at a therapeutic community. Now, I really didn't know what that was, but I traveled to that site, and it was about 45 minutes from where I lived. And I got there and I was not impressed. It was in a really rundown area of town, and it was located in about 4 or 5 buildings. And in the middle of the buildings was the little office building. And of course it didn't have locks on the door. It didn't have, the windows wouldn't go down. I just felt really unsafe in the environment. And so when I was offered the job, I knew I had to take the job. So I was thinking that it would be just a stepping stone until I found something else. But immediately I just fell in love with the whole TC experience. And it was such an experience like never before. It was such an experience of camaraderie, of friendship, of fellowship, of companionship, of brotherhood, of sisterhood, of closeness, of togetherness, and team spirit. So I fell in love with it. And June will be 48 years of me working in a therapeutic community. So I've had over time, I've had 2 therapeutic communities I've worked in. So before we get into it, I'd like to share some testimonies, and I want to do this because in honor of those people who have gone through TCs and are giving back. Also, TCs get a bad rap. And I think some of that has to do with the history, where maybe what people have heard is the harsh consequences, the sanctions, the verbal haircuts, all of the negative pieces of that. But in my time of working in TCs, I run into people all the time. And so one of the great things about a TC is that it can serve so many people. And the first TC I was in, we had over 100 and something people at all times. And this particular TC I'm at now, we have about 200 residents. So we serve a lot of people. So we run into people all the time. And sometimes we get to hear back about how they're doing. And so I just want to share a little bit about some of those people who I've experienced over time. And Patty is one I called the other day. We keep in contact. Not only was she in the TC when I was working there, but she completed the TC. She went to school. She became a licensed mental health counselor, and she's been working in the field for a number of years. So Patty was there between 1983 and September of 85. She was there for 2 years, and that was back when we had a long time to have people in treatment. So Patty says, when I asked her the question, just what was the experience like for you? And she says, with tears in her voice, she says, with all my heart, that is the most connected I've ever felt in my life. The people I met that became important to me back then are still important in my life today. And then there's George, who I more recently worked with, and George was there from 2020 to 2021. He was there a year. And George says, and I can attest to George's experience from what I've known about him and what I learned about him. And he says that I was living like an animal with no regard for anyone, not even myself. I learned to care about myself and others. I feel I became a member of society. And so George still has the same job that he got while he was in the program. He's been promoted to foreman. He's engaged and he's doing well. Tina, who hopefully is on the webinar, is I met her as a counselor when she worked in the program that I supervised. And Tina entered Daytop Village at age 13, being the youngest person to enter that program at that time. And so she was there for 2 years, left at age 15. And I had to really condense what she said. She couldn't stop talking. She says, what I really want you to know, I would not be alive if I had not gone there. And so Tina, later in life, went back to work in TCs, and she is a very committed, active counselor in TCs now. And Tina, who was there 2 years, fairly recent, but her 2-year period, which is very unusual, but she was returned to jail at some point. She was frozen in the program at another point, so her time was extended. And so she says that I was kicked out of my mother's house when I was 13, and I had to live on the streets and in jails. And for 15 years, I lived like that. When I got to the program, I felt that I had a home and people who cared about me. I had to learn to accept to love. And so when I hear those testimonials, it just does my heart great. And my long, hard career in TCs feels so much worth it. And so we'll talk about, and I hope, Amy, give me a hint if I'm going too fast. I get nervous and I start really flying. So as we talk about, we're going to do some definitions of what a therapeutic community is, what's a modified therapeutic community, and what does it mean, milieu of therapy, what that means. So the definition of a therapeutic community is it's a highly organized and closely monitored environment. And it's also a collaborative community of like individuals who come to get a need met, who come together to get their therapeutic needs met. And so the community itself is the agent of change. The main thing about a community, a therapeutic community is it is very organized, and it should look that way. If you show up at a therapeutic community, it should look like people are about their business. They know where they're going. They know what they're doing. If you ask anybody, well, what's going on now, they should be able to tell you the schedule. And they should be able to tell you why they're not participating in whatever activity there is. So it looks very organized. They're usually exceptionally clean because that's part of the maintenance of the program. Also, there's a high level of accountability in the community. And nothing happens in a therapeutic community by chance. Everything is orchestrated, everything is managed, everything is organized, everything is scheduled. It may not always look that way, but it should be. And so the main thing about the therapeutic community is the collaborative relationship and the interaction among the members. A modified TC is just that. It's a modified version of the TC, which may be It may be length of stay, it may be, but overall, it's a kinder, gentler, more gentle approach to the treatment process. It is more individualized, it's more personalized, it's a less intense environment and interaction. But it works all on the same principles with the same components. Then we talk about milieu of therapy. And what we're meaning by that is that the community is the method, that the therapy is the community, that members are involved in the community, the members are managing the community, the members are interacting with each other in a way that assists each other. So the therapy is in the environment, and members are expected to use the environment to get their therapeutic needs met. In the milieu, individuals are surrounded by a safe, structured community. The focus is on developing skills. Members will tend to organically almost tend to the needs of each other. A lot of times that's how we identify the needs of residents, is from other residents. I'll go in and maybe do a group with a group of members I don't know, and already somebody has aligned themselves with someone who can't read or write, and they're assisting them. So the members take care of each other. They take care of the needs in the community. Community is the method. It's basically that the community assesses, it manages it evaluates, it supports, it challenges the community. So the treatment happens in the community. The community is the method, and it's everybody's responsibility to make sure that the community, the environment is working well. And again, nothing happens organically. These things have to be intentional. They have to be intentional. They have to be measured. They have to be looked at. They have to be managed. They have to be tweaked all the time. Or it would be easy for, if you just imagine that an environment of over 100 or a couple of hundred people can easily get off track without a constant eye on it. So just a little bit about TCs. Synanon started in the US in 1958. And prior to that, an addict had to either just kick drugs themselves and try to stay clean by whatever means they are able to put together. A lot of them would seek help in AA meetings. A lot didn't find that quite fit for them. Some people were able to, some people got treated in hospitals, some people got put in institutions, but it really wasn't a place for addicts to go and get the consistent long-term help that they needed until Synanon was started in 1958 by Charles Dietrich. And from there, and in the 60s, a lot of other programs, TCs were an offshoot of that. We had Daytop Village and Phoenix House and Amity, and then a number of other TCs since then. Synanon kind of got the rap of becoming more cult-like, and in 1991, Synanon closed its doors under legal issues, legal difficulties, and financial issues. But Charles Dietrich, for a long time, ran a thriving TC. So the view of the disorder in a TC is that the addiction is just a symptom of the problem, that the problem is viewed as The substance is just an offshoot. The problem is the whole person. And the goal of the treatment is to address the whole person. The focus is on, and so if you think about most of the people that I see now, the average age of use is probably about 14. But then we also have people who started using at 12. I've worked with one who started at 9. And so if you can imagine years and years of addiction, there are tons of things that the clients have not learned. There are lots of issues in terms of self-esteem, in terms of understanding themselves, in terms of responsibility, in terms of being able to articulate and manage their emotional selves. There are lots of issues that our clients show up with, and we look at the substance as just a symptom of the other problems. So that's the view of the disorder in a residential program, a TC program. And so when we think about the length of treatment, and if you paid attention early on, I'm talking about people in treatment 2 years. And for a lot of people, that wasn't enough. But certainly, and now TCs are shortened. It's rare that any go over a year. We even have those that are 6 months, 3 months. So, and some within the TC, I know the TC that I'm with now, that I work at now, we have a short-term and a long-term program, and our members are sentenced by the courts. So a person will come in with a 6-month stay that may have more issues than someone who's coming in with a 12-month stay. But at 6 months, we have to move them along because the court says they're only sentenced to 6 months. And that's as long as we can keep them. We didn't earlier, when I started in TCs, we didn't have that stipulation, that limitation. We were able to keep people. Now, in the 2-year programs, mostly it looks like at about 18 months of in-house treatment, they moved into a reentry phase of the program where they may be out to work and they're doing their meetings and they're doing more things in the community, and they were not as involved in the regular workings, everyday workings of the program. So the last probably 6 months of a 2-year stay was more of a re-entry. So it looked probably more like the recovery residences look. And that's part of why I'm so happy that you guys are interested in looking at how you can expand the work from a TC. It's very, very needed. And as we've shortened programs over the years, a lot gets missing in the limited time that we have to work with people. And especially if you're thinking about somebody who started at 9 or somebody who's been in prison most of their life. And we do get that a lot. So I'm really pleased that you guys are interested in furthering the work of TCs, and what you do is amazing. It's necessary. It's wonderful. And I can't say enough about it. We'll look at some of the key principles of a therapeutic community. The community is built on competencies. And so throughout TCs, you will see the basic 10 competencies, self-help and mutual help, skill number 1. And so the premise of self-help is that what a person, the program built into the program are resources, the seminars, the counseling, the groups, all the opportunities for personal growth. But it's up to the person to get what they need from those resources. It's up to the person to get maximum gain out of the resources that are available for them. And so it's self-help. Mutual help is that not only are you to help yourself, but your responsibility is to help others change and grow by participating in the community. As directed by the community. That helps not only the person, but it helps the other members of the community. And the role of the community is that you are assessing, you are evaluating, you are challenging, you are supporting, you are praising. So everything is happening in the community. The second skill is acting as if, or fake it until you make it. And that's a key skill, because if you think about a lot of our people really have to trust the process, because it's not things that they've done before. Being assertive as opposed to being aggressive is not necessarily something that they're good at or they've done before. They may be able to step up and handle things aggressively, but not maybe so assertively. So we'll say, well, act as if you're assertive. What would an assertive person do in this case? So it may not feel like it fits for you, but act as if it does. And what you have to do to monitor that is that they are not changing that to just be faking the program. So they will do that. Oh, I'm just faking. But that's a real skill that really works. Practice makes perfect is the idea around that. So it requires a person to practice a new way of responding to other people, to situations. And then there's no we-they dichotomy. And so if you imagine a place with over 200 people and the differences that are inherent in that situation, it's important that we minimize the differences and that we bring attention to the commonalities. And that is a challenge. And we have to always be aware of that. And we have to always be evaluating how that's happening. So it's a delicate balance of providing individual needs, but also minimizing the differences. So we do that in a number of ways. Some ways we, by dress, that everybody has to dress a certain way. Not in uniform or anything, but everybody has to have a belt. You have to have your pants pulled up. You have to have your shirt tucked in. And so everybody has to present in a certain way. Now, there are differences in how people can wear their hair. We discourage any political issues in the program. And you know how divisive that can be. So we have to really work at minimizing the differences and promoting that we're all here for the same reason, to get recovery needs met, to grow, to prosper, to meet our personal goals, and to maintain sobriety. And so that's constant scrutinizing has to happen, because especially from small communities, when you come in and you know everybody, and a lot of times we've had people who were in jail together or in prison together, and they kind of want to group off and do what they did in those places. So it has to be constantly monitored, orchestrated, so that doesn't happen. And the same thing with the principal, with the staff, in the know that that dichotomy. We are a member of the community, just like the residents are. We may have a bit higher authority, but we are members of the community. And so we're not asking the clients to do what we don't do and what we don't practice. So we're asking the clients to challenge their peers. Then we should be willing to challenge when we see something that's inconsistent with the program. If we're asking our clients to show up dressed a certain way, then we should be able to show up at least dressed that well. And a lot of times we see staff members wanting to come in their individuality, which is fine, but if it sets you apart from the community, it's important that you also adjust to that no, we, they dichotomy. If I'm asking you not to walk on the grass, then I shouldn't walk on the grass. And that's really important for legitimizing our clients come in already not trusting. They've been in institutions, they're not trusting, they're just looking for some reason not to trust you. And one of the main ways is if you are inconsistent with what you're asking them to do, and they will take note of that. So no, we, they dichotomy also refers to the staff. Social learning versus didactic learning. And so within the environment, the learning takes place. Now, there are organized things that happen in the community. There are your one-on-ones where the residents are expected to talk to each other, to meet with each other, to talk to each other, to attend groups. They are expected to participate in group and individual counseling. So whatever there is in the community is the social part of where the clients will get their needs met. Also, clients are expected to interact with each other. They are expected to challenge each other. They are expected to also be responsible for maintaining balance in the community. And so the community is the model. The social part is the model. And clients, when they're seeing our residents, I should be saying residents, I get, I've been kind of on both ends of that. So sometimes I say clients, but residents is the appropriate way to refer to them. Excuse me when I say clients. So it's important that if the community is working well, people will get challenged socially in the community. I see you're going to groups, but you just sleep when you're in there. So they're held to accountability within that social structure. And then there are your didactic presentations where the participants are able to go to seminars and trainings and lectures and school and other activities to learn. And so it's up to them to gain from the community what they can gain and what they're willing to gain from it. And one thing about the one thing about the didactic presentations. Wait a minute, I'm skipping here. Let me get this straight. 1 second, please. One thing about that is when a client is becomes an older member, they also participate in trainings and in lectures to newer members. And really, by the time a resident leaves the program, a lot of them are as skilled as a lot of the counselors. So the belief system within a TC, part of what happens in a TC is that we also establish the belief system. And just thinking about where our clients come from, they come in with the belief systems from wherever they've been, either on the streets, in the drug lifestyle, with that belief system, from prison, with that belief system, and value system, and from all the different places that they've been. So we establish with them a belief system and a value system. And one of the things that we promote with them is right living, moral living, honesty, you are your brother's keeper, integrity, doing the right thing even when nobody's looking. So those are things that promoted by the TC that have to be taught and have to be nurtured and have to be challenged, and have to be recognized too when people are able to accomplish those things. One of the tough things that we run across is that whole thing about you are your brother's keeper. People coming from prison generally it's, I take care of me, it's not my business. I have nothing to do with it. And that's a big a hurdle to overcome with a lot of people, especially even coming from just the streets and the drug lifestyle. Mind your own business. And then just a feature of addiction itself is people become a means to get what you need. The addict is looking for the drug of addiction, and people become a means to use to get what they need. And so if they've done that for 100 years, that's a challenge for them to overcome and to start to want to get to the heart of people and get to embrace other people and get into the business of other people. And so that's a challenge, and that's one of those things that the community always is challenging, working, and cultivating. And again, none of these things happen organically. They have to be monitored. They can easily get out of alignment. So record keeping also a part, and I don't know, record keeping may vary depending on the programs. Some of record keeping has to do with whatever grant or contract or whatever a person may be under. But even if there's not that record keeping, some record keeping should happen because it just reinforces commitment and responsibility to the process. It has people to think about. For instance, if you're just having them write about your goals, what did you accomplish towards your goals for the week? It helps them to keep that in the forefront of their minds and to have show some responsibility to that. So some record keeping is really important and helpful. Upward mobility and the privilege system, it's very important in a TC is that nothing is awarded without being earned. And that's not including, basic human rights, of course, but the idea of earning is very, very important. And one of the things that I see is that there's a tendency to want to lower the bar for some people who may not have the same skill level as other people. But what is the responsibility of the environment is not to lower the bar, but to help them meet the bar. And so that gets to be something that gets challenged a lot by the staff. They kind of decide that some people may need more help than others and maybe taking a more permissive attitude toward them. But it's important that it's still, earning is important still, and that we help them meet the bar rather than lowering the bar for them. Residents can also be given sanctions, but promotion in the environment is very, very important. That in the TC environment, there are phase systems. A person coming into the program, their focus is on orientation, on learning what they need to be, what's expected of residents. Then there are positions in the community, your coordinators, your mediators, those people who are responsible for kind of keeping everything moving, taking the temperature of the community, working with staff on evaluating how things are going. And so giving clients something to look forward to and something to move forward to. And as people move up in the program and establish more things and they're able to accomplish things, then that's something to look forward to for newer people. And more privileges and more privileging should come with that. And so that privilege system, being able to accomplish some things, it makes for a safer environment, and people own the environment because they're owning their treatment and their participation in the community. It's not what's being done to them, it's what they can do for themselves and accomplish for themselves. And that's really, really important. And it's especially important for a lot of our clients who have never really accomplished much in life. And the little bit of, you would be so surprised that small things go such a long way. Just a certificate. They absolutely love certificates. And for some, they've never gotten a certificate, never finished anything, never accomplished anything. So all of those things that recognize growth and promotion throughout the community is very important. Role modeling is very, that's a key part of the community, that residents understand that they are not only to be responsible for themselves, but they're responsible for how they are modeling for others, and that they're always reminded of that. And it also puts them in a position where they're having to practice what they preach. So role modeling not only helps them, but it also helps others. And so we are always pushing that. I don't care if you're here 2 days, you have something that you can give the person that's been here 2 hours. So role modeling is a huge component of the, did I miss a skill? Did I skip 8? I see somebody saying I skipped 8. Oh, I'm sorry, belonging and individuality. I did. Thank you for that note. Belonging is really important as well, and focus should be made early on belonging. For instance, people coming into the program, and especially coming from institutions and other environments, it's important that they own the community as well, that they feel a part of the community. So emphasis is put on belonging early on. So think about ways that, how do we do that? How do we orientate them to the program? How do we establish belonging? One of the things that we do in our program is that there's a credo that everybody coming into have to learn. So they have to learn that, and they get to say it as a part of being welcomed into the house, that they've learned this credo, and they're committing to live by that and to honor that. And that's something that small is so important. And I was going to tell a quick story, but my time is, I'm not going to, but that's so important. So think about ways how you can create that, and it makes the environment safe. Residents start to own the environment. And again, it's something that they are signing up for. It's not that something that's being done to them. And that's a hard balance to maintain, especially for programs who get people from the courts. They come in at, oh, I'm just here to do my time and leave. But it's so important that we help them to shift that thinking, so that I'm here to do my time, but to really change and really to open up and to really use what I'm learning here. Number 10 is understanding and facilitating the group process. And residents will, now, if that's going well in the program, that's one of the things that kind of happens more organically than other things. So if we start to involve clients in the groups, the expectation that you're a part of the group, you're to teach, you're to give back, you can participate in the counseling sessions, in your one-on-ones with people. So that understanding of facilitating that group process. Okay, I skipped something here. Let me look at that. Oh, that's just misconceptions about the TCs. I won't spend any time with that. And again, I don't know that the slides will be made available. If not, you can email me. I can get those to you. But establishing the TC culture, remembering that the TC is a living, learning environment. And again, I can't say it enough, nothing happens organically. It has to be nurtured. It has to be orchestrated. It has to be managed. It has to be evaluated. And you're always looking to, and if something is going, if you have a theme that's going on in the program, for instance, an outbreak of theft, then something's not happening in your community. All those things that you don't want are indications that there are things going on in your community that you need to pay attention to. And so we hold the residents responsible for managing the community. If people are missing groups, then why is that happening? If you are your brother's keeper, you should know that he should be in group and you should be saying something about it. So you really have to stay on the community to make sure that it's working the way you want it to work. And so staff is involved, staff is active in that as well. And meeting with residents and meeting with your structure, coming up with a plan for how you're going to address different things that are themes in your community. Establishing the TC culture and thinking about it as a village. The social structure of it is a village of people coming together to improve themselves and to help others in their journey. So if there's a theme in the program that, for instance, the place isn't clean and cigarette butts are all over the place, then there's a problem. There's a problem in your community. And the problem is that they're not being accountable for each other and to each other. So that gives you a sign that you need to go back and address those things. And because we look at it as a village, that's part of why we want to refer to the members as residents, because it kind of implies that this is your place where you live and you are responsible. Establishing the TC culture, that things are consistent, things are structured, things are organized, that we really need to look at welcoming, orientation. If you have people coming in and you're losing a lot of people on the front end, you want to look at welcoming, you want to look at what the orientation is, and address it there. So you're always looking at the program. You want to be clear about that. Members are clear about what the expectations are, that they're clear about what the rules are. What are the rules that will absolutely get you straightway put out of the program? What are some things that we're willing to work with? You want to be clear about what the phase up structure is. How do you gain mobility? How do you gain jobs, and how do you get to certain places? So that all those things need to be clearly stated. And members need to understand they're coming into an environment that has high accountability, that others will be challenging you. Others will be in your business. And so members need to understand that right off, and that it's a power with and not a power over model. And if you do that, and if you don't do that, where it's a power with, you're going to create an environment much like an institution that I'm over here, you're over there. And so you really have to work at making sure that members see themselves as part of the power structure. Also regarding establishing the TC culture, focus on the structure and the building of the community culture. The structure is your internal duty assignments, your community meetings. Communication is key. That one of the main things about communication is that in a TC, things are public. And a lot of people, especially coming from institutions, have a problem with that, because information is power and it could be used in different ways, and a lot of times it's been used against them. So you want them to understand that we are a community, we are here for each other, we're working with, and so things are private. Public, I'm sorry. Things are public. And, of course, there's some things that you won't advertise or publicize, like maybe somebody's HIV status or health status, and those may not be things that you would be advertising, but communication is public and no secrets. And what is it that saying in AA in 12 steps, secrets make you sick? And that's true. So we want to encourage members to own what they need to own, to stand up and face what is in their past, that's in their background, things that may hold shame, so that they can work through those things and to a successful recovery. Because if it doesn't happen here, it's going to show up out there. In establishing the environment, you want to establish therapeutic conversations. You want it to be strength-based. You want it to be welcoming. You want ceremonies like phase ups and completions. You want an environment of trust. And when a person violates the trust of another person, that needs to be an issue, because trust is important within the community. Accountability is important. Sharing in work. Everybody has a work assignment. Everybody contributes to the upkeep of the environment. Rushing through these, let me see. So it's highly structured, consistent, and predictable. And again, okay, so I'm getting a warning that let me just look real quick to see if there's anything.
Yeah, Jean, you're doing a fantastic job. I feel like we need to have a part 1 and part 2 on this. I mean, this has just been an amazing overview of the community and how to create community within a TC. And I do want to open things up for
Yes.
a little bit of discussion or to answer any questions. But I have to say, I think that what's really important, particularly for this series, this recovery resident series, and I have to tip my hat to NAR, the National Alliance for Recovery Residences, that they thought about recovery housing on a continuum and purposely included TCs, because every residential treatment program is not a TC. There's something special and unique about the TC and the environment that is transferable to recovery housing. And what you hear a lot about in recovery housing is the setting, is the service, and that's a therapeutic milieu. So, I mean, we may use different words, but it's the whole idea of creating this culture, this community in which people learn from each other and grow together. So I think that was just a lovely presentation. I hate to cut things off, but I do want to leave some time for questions. So if folks want to unmute themselves, raise their hands, and ask a couple of questions while we have access to Jean, that would be, now would be the time.
So I see that some people are asking for the PowerPoint. Are you sharing my address, my email?
Yep. So we do post the webinars on our website. But if you want to share your contact information, people can reach out to you and get a copy of the slides, because again, this was fabulous, and I think that George De Leon would be quite proud of what you did today with this presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions from the audience?
Yeah, hi. This is Van Smith from Recovery Houses Rochester, as well as the New York State Alliance of Recovery Residences. Your presentation was phenomenal. Lots of valuable information. I'm wondering, in regards to recovery community, are these skills or rather practices transferable to maybe the staff that's working in a recovery residence, as we talk about community and creating a culture where it's practicing a lot of the things that you shared with us today?
You know what I would recommend is if you take the different the skills, the competencies, and sit with the staff and go, how do we do this already? And then how can we do more of this, incorporate it more into the environment, but just take each competencies of the 10 competencies and look at how you're doing it and how you can do it more.
Thank you. That's a great
Mhm.
idea. I'm gonna definitely take that. And I'll give you credit the first time, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So one last quick question. Where can people learn more about TCs? So they'll contact you to get a copy of the slides. What other resources would you recommend, Jean, for folks
Oh,
who want to learn more?
George De Leon has quite a few writings. Even just Google him, you'll see quite a bit about his work. And he has books. So George De Leon is the foremost person I would recommend to learn more about it from.
Excellent, excellent. So in the interest of time, I think that we need to wrap up and transition to just some announcements, housekeeping things. But Jean, this was just amazing. And yeah, I may contact you for a part 2 so that we
Thank
can learn
you.
more. So what's coming up with I-STARR? Next month we'll have another webinar. We'll have Dr. Carmen Massan. She'll be presenting on recovery housing to support marginally housed individuals with substance use disorders. In April, we'll feature 2 of the I-STARR advisory board members. We'll have Dave Sheridan from the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. We'll have Mark Garino from ATOD, 2 leaders in the field of recovery housing and the treatment of opioid dependence, and they'll be presenting on emerging issues in the field. So 2 really great webinars coming up. I just want to alert people to accessing I-STARR webinars on the website, or I-STARR resources and webinars on the website, and through social media. If you're on the website, you'll notice information about our training series. So these are 12 webinars. We have 2 different tracks, one track for recovery housing operators and providers, another track for researchers or folks who are wanting to learn how to do research on recovery housing. Those are available through our learning management system. If you complete the 12 webinars for the operator provider series until April, the end of April, you can earn CEUs for viewing those webinars. Yeah, please go to the website and check those out if you haven't been participating in them thus far. So the other thing I want to alert you to, let's go to the next slide. I mentioned earlier that I-STARR is part of the consortium on addiction recovery science, of the COARS network. They do the National Conference on Recovery Science, the NCARS conference. That's coming up in April. It's the 23rd through the 24th. It's a virtual conference. Registration is open and live, and early bird registration is available through the end of this month. So if you register before the end of February, it's $80 for professionals and $30 for students. Again, all the recovery science leaders will be there, where there's opportunities for mentors and mentees to pair up. There'll be virtual booths so that researchers and advocates and leaders in the field can connect. It's a really great conference, and the only one that's focused on recovery science. So please go check that out. And we are at the top of the hour. So wrapping up, I just want to thank everyone for their attendance and their attention. Jean, just a masterful presentation, and thank you for sharing your contact information so that folks can get the slides from you to learn more. But thank you everyone for your attendance, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Take care.
And thank you all. Thank you all.
Jane?